At almost 6 feet, he was about 9 inches taller than I was and could easily have skied faster than I did, but he always stayed far enough back to avoid ramming the tips of his skis into the tails of mine and sending me tumbling into soft snow beside the harder-groomed trail. The previous winter, I'd learned that climbing out of deep, fluffy snow while wearing skis wasn't as easy as it sounded, even with the help of a big, strong man. To his credit, he had tried not to laugh. In a way, I was relieved that on this first outing in a long time with the big, strong man, skiing prevented us from talking or even looking at each other. Brent had been my late husband's best friend and his partner in the Fallingbrook Police Department. After Alec was shot and killed, Brent's and my grief had kept us apart. About 3 years later, we'd finally begun doing things together, like eating at my house where he could play with my cat, kayaking in the summer, and cross-country skiing in the winter. Our shared grief had drawn us closer than we'd been when Alec was alive, but it had also kept a barrier between us. Now I thought I might want to destroy that barrier. I had a problem. I didn't know how. Alec had told me that if anything ever happened to him, I should find happiness with another man. At first, I hadn't been able to imagine being with anyone besides Alec. Now I felt almost ready to begin thinking about dating again. The trouble was that Brent was the only man I wanted to be with. Worse, I really wanted to be with him. Back in August, I had finally admitted to myself how much I cared about the tall detective who was always available when I needed someone, and here it was almost Christmas, and I still hadn't given him a hint about my feelings. I was scared. What if merely being my dining, kayaking, and cross-country skiing buddy was enough for Brent, and was all he wanted in a relationship with me? What if he felt, as I had at first, that a romance between us would be disloyal to Alec? What if he preferred to date other women? Skiing through the elegantly lacy woods, I wondered who owned this property with its freshly groomed trail. I was skiing in grooves made by weighted skis towed behind a snowmobile. The tracks of its treads were still visible. In the short time we'd been in this snowy wonderland, I hadn't seen or heard anyone else. No other vehicles had been in the driveway, but there could have been some behind the closed doors of the double garage I'd glimpsed at the rear of the chalet. Brent's eyes had held a teasing glint earlier that afternoon when he'd told me to follow him in my car to a ski trail. At the time, I'd figured he'd found a fun new place to ski. That was true, but I could also imagine that he might have bought the chalet and these acres of woods, complete with a stream emptying into a lake where we could go kayaking in the summer.